Adams, and this is my recap of day three of the R. Kelly trial. There was a cliffhanger at the end of the day, but whatever you're thinking it was, that wasn't it. All right, so the first witness today was a man named Mr. Navarro. He used to be R. Kelly's assistant or one of his assistants at the chocolate factory. He went to a school in LA about for music or something like that and ended up getting an internship with the chocolate factory, which was in the basement floor of R. Kelly's home. After about 2 to 3 weeks, he moved up to a paid position, basically like a general assistant type of thing. He ran errands, he picked up guests, he went and got food, he ran errands, the full gamut. So he worked for R. Kelly for about 2.5 years. He started in July of 2007 and he quit in 2009. I think one issue was that there were some issues with his overtime pay, and once he left, he ended up suing them for his overtime pay, and he got paid. So either way, once he moved up to a paid position, he signed a W-2. He did a W-2, signed a non-disclosure, all pretty standard. He talked about several people who were like in around a lot, which was Daryl McDavid. There's been testimony about him being R. Kelly's accountant, and some testimony about him being one of R. Kelly's office managers. There was also a guy named Junebug, another guy named Donnie Lau, and a few other people. So he did say that when he picked up guests, which were primarily girls, he could not speak to them. They could not speak. Even when he like took them around the house to their room or wherever it was, they could not engage in conversation. He did say he remembered a situation where he was watching the security footage for the track for the factory. Sorry, and two girls who looked fairly young jumped over the fence, and they could see them running through the yard, but they ended up going off camera. And that kind of ties back to yesterday's testimony from Geronda Pace about her and her friends running through the gate. And she said that a car came through the gate, and they just ran in from, after the car came in. But he said on the video they jumped the fence. Either way, that's that. So he said that at the security gate at R. Kelly's home, security checked people's IDs, and then when people came to the studio, they would check IDs too. And at some point, they were supposed to scan IDs or make copies, but that was not always done. Nicole, who is one of R. Kelly's defense attorneys, she did establish that people could come and go when they wanted. She also established that on the rooms in the house, there were no special locks where people could be locked in the room. There were just standard locks. He said that one of his duties was cleaning at the studio, running errands, all that type of stuff. In one report, he stated that he was cleaning the studio or the chocolate factory, and in some of the rooms, and he said there was a smell that was so bad, like he could never forget it. But on cross, Nicole established that he never saw buckets of urine or buckets of feces, which kind of goes back to some of the statements that the girls made that they were not able to use the bathroom. But he said he never saw that. He also did, and this came out, talked about being on tour once and him driving with a girl from Alabama to Atlanta. And so that basically goes to one of the Mann Act charges, taking a minor over state lines. But he didn't know who the young lady was. Let's see. He couldn't recall if all the bedrooms had bathrooms attached, because that was something that came up yesterday when Joanna Pace testified that she had to get permission to use the bathroom, even though there was a bathroom attached to her bedroom. Let's see what else. He also there was also some like conflicting testimony. He said he never saw any physical abuse by anyone. Then he did say he heard some verbal abuse to employees, but on cross it was brought out through a report where he said he never heard any physical abuse or saw. He never heard any verbal abuse or saw any physical abuse. His comeback was, well, that time when he gave that statement to the federal agents, he had corona, or he thought he had corona. He was really sick. I don't know what Corona has to do with you knowing or remembering certain things, but hey, who knows? He eventually went to. He eventually stopped working for R. Kelly. He worked there about 2.5 years. They asked, was his job strange? Like, how did he feel about his duties? He said that he felt like his job was strange. He felt like he was kind of like in the twilight zone. And they asked, well, had he worked for other celebrities? And at that time, he'd never worked for any celebrities. But after that, he's worked with Kanye, Jay Z, and some other celebrities. So he's like, okay, well, compared to what I did for them, yeah, it was weird, but it came out that what he did for them was totally different than what his position was for R. Kelly. He also talked about there's apparently something's going to come up with a black Range Rover. So he did talk about him driving Rob's cars to go pick up people, run errands, and just kind of went through the list of cars that were available to him. But this black Range Rover, which will come up, I don't know when, he said he never saw a black Range Rover and he never drove one. So I don't know where that's going, but it seems like it was important. He also they also talked about the phones, him answering the phone in the studio, and R. Kelly's lawyer asked, "Well, you never got a call from any of the girls or any of the guests saying that they couldn't leave?" And he was like, "Well, I kind of got a call, something like that." He said that he would get calls from the girls saying they wanted to leave, but they couldn't get a ride, or they didn't like have money to leave, something small like that, but nothing like where like they were being held against their will. He also said that he never saw any underage girls there. He thought that all the girls that he saw there were around his age, which was about 21 to 22 at that time. He did say that he got fined once. I guess like sometimes when employees did something wrong, they would get fined, which would be like a deduction from their pay. He didn't recall what the fines were or not. He just felt like, he got a fine once and he felt like it wasn't deserved. He ended up leaving and he sued them. He sued R. Kelly for base production. So that's who he said was on his paycheck because they didn't pay him for some overtime that he done. The next witness was Courtney Wilson. She was a associate at the law firm that did Jerronda Pace's first settlement. So she didn't have really a lot to offer. She just talked about how Miss Pace called on January the 27th of 2010 and she did the intake call about what the issue was, what she wanted to do. And she came in, talked about what happened. That was pretty much it. I think it's interesting that yesterday it was established that January 23rd was the last day that Ms. Pace and Mr. Kelly had any communications. And then shortly, 4 days later, she's contacting a lawyer. Also, during that time, they talked about this journal. The journal, again, where she wrote her notes about what happened on the 23rd, it was established that she did not create the journal entry on the 23rd. She only created the journal after she went to the lawyers. So that may come back up later. Other than that, the next the next witness was Carolyn Harris, the Cook County clerk. And she was the supervisor over the marriage records and some other things. Let's just get to it. So there were three parts to the marriage certificate process or marriage process. So the first is the marriage application. And she testified that in the marriage application, people come in, give their information from their identification card. And then the clerk takes that information, they print the marriage license right then, that day. You can get married the next day and it'll be valid. You can't get married the same day that you get the marriage license because it will be invalid. The only way that you can get married the same day you get the marriage license is if you are in the military. So after you get the marriage license, then you go to your priest or wherever it is you go and get married, and then you turn the marriage license back in and get a certification of marriage. So those are the three documents that you have uh, in Chicago. You have the application, you have the license, and you get those two the same day, and then you have the certification of marriage. They talked about the details. Mr. Kelly's information was there, the message, the materials that were there for Aaliyah, what it said for her age. That was pretty much it. R. Kelly's lawyer, who was Nicole Cross, she was talking about there's a number on the bottom of the marriage certificate, and she was trying to bring that up and saying, she was like, well, what is this? Because there's several different numbers on the certificates, and she was trying to bring it up from what I thought was like there was some type of inconsistency or error in the certificate with this number that was on the bottom, and the clerk basically said that number was irrelevant. That number, I think it was like 699840. That number is the page count of the pages that were in the printer. So say for instance, if you were printing something and you had 500 sheets in the printer and your printer did the same thing and you printed something and it was 292 at the bottom, then that means that was the 292nd page. It had no significance. They did talk about the signatures, and they didn't go into detail about it. This is something the prosecutor brought up and just saying, okay, this is where it says Robert Sylvester Kelly, and it was the signature, and then it was Aaliyah's name, and it was the signature. So when I said that in my post that R. Kelly's attorney dropped the ball, was because so many more questions could have been asked about his signature, because we already know that he can't read or write. So it's almost like, well, how did he sign this? And there were other issues that came up later with the marriage. So I felt like that was a really good way to introduce issues regarding the marriage certificate, and they just didn't take the opportunity. Also, a lot of other things that came up were when the other attorney from the law firm that sued R. Kelly on behalf of Jerome Pace, when the other attorney, there was another attorney, he was a white male for R. Kelly, he was asking questions about the settlement, well, the intake document that she had provided, or she had typed up the memo. So with that male attorney and with the female attorney, the judge kept having to, I don't want to say admonish them, but the prosecutor was objecting. The judge was sustaining the objections, meaning that the judge agreed with the objection. And a lot of times the objection was due to form, which is the way that you're asking the question or that you are presenting the question. And that happened a lot throughout the day. A lot. The people sitting next to me were like, those two lawyers need to go back to school. I have nothing else to say about that. All right, the next witness was the witness that we were waiting on who was going to plead the fifth. It was Demetrius Smith. He did not want to testify. He planned on pleading the fifth before they brought the jury in for him. The judge had to tell him, I know you plan on pleading the fifth. He had his attorney there. Great. So what ended up happening is the federal prosecutors had an order granting him immunity from prosecution based on things he testified about. And in that situation, in the federal system, it's kind of forcing your hand to testify unless you say, you know what, I'm just going to jail today. And that's what happened. So he gets on the stand. He didn't want to testify. And it was a show, to say the least. He talked about how he met R. Kelly in 1984. He had a band, and he met R. Kelly. He was in a talent show, and even back then, R. Kelly was writing his own songs, and he wanted some songs from R. Kelly. So they talked about, I think Jerron Pace her just a little bit because they wanted to talk about that, but they didn't really go into that detail. They also talked about we had a recess in court, and that's when they talked about the T-shirt with Jerome Pace and whether or not there are going to be any type of evidentiary issues about it with the chain of custody, meaning, okay, did this cop give it to this cop, and did they document it appropriately? The judge was like, look, that's not a issue to for me to not admit the evidence, but it's an issue of like the chain of custody. Not a big deal. Also on that recess, they talked about Rosh Hashanah and whether or not they're going to break for 1 or 2 days in September for Rosh Hashanah, or what they need to do. Apparently, that's on Labor Day weekend. And if the jury wants to break 1 or 2 days, but R. Kelly's attorney, Nicole, said she wanted to be off for both days of Rosh Hashanah. All right, so Demetrius came back on the stand, and long story short, he is 65 years old. He did testify before the grand jury, and the grand jury is basically an anonymous group of people who decide, who hear some evidence or some limited testimony to determine whether or not the case is going to move forward. So he testified before the grand jury, but didn't want to testify in court today. There was a video that one of the R. Kelly supporters showed me where he was coming in early today. He was like, I'm Team R. Kelly. I'm here, to help R. Kelly. Other than that, when we were waiting for the jury to come in, we just, everyone in the courtroom silent. We're in the overflow room. He gets on the mic and says, how everybody doing? And the judge was just like, we're just going to wait. Anywho, so once he began, he ended up becoming something like his manager, assistant, and R. Kelly paid him 5% of whatever he made. There was also another guy involved named Tyree Jameson, who was part of R. Kelly's security. He said that in 1988 or 1989, R. Kelly signed with Jive Records, and his manager was Barry Hankerson. And once he got signed with Jive, he started doing more things, like as far as scheduling for R. Kelly, and even when he started having tours, he would schedule the tours. So he was kind of like a semi-tour manager and personal assistant. He said that someone named Javante would travel with them when they were on tour. They all ended up meeting Aaliyah through her uncle, who was R. Kelly's manager, because her uncle felt like she had talent, so they wanted R. Kelly to meet her to see like what he thought about her talent. They met at Aaliyah's home in Detroit, and he said that walking into their home was like walking into like the home of the Cosbys. There wasn't too much else there. He said that she was a little nervous, she was shy, and Rob was shy, but Rob ended up playing the piano for her, and then she started to sing. But that wasn't the only reason they were in Detroit, because R. Kelly worked with a number, sorry guys, of other people, of other musicians in Detroit, so they met with them as well. Let me just be clear, I'm not going to give you guys a bunch of like details about the Aaliyah thing. I think that's distasteful and tacky. It's just not going to happen. But either way,
why are you doing it then?
He was a very reluctant witness. He made it clear on numerous occasions he didn't want to testify. He was saying, he didn't remember, and the prosecutor had his testimony from the grand jury, and she was like, well, do you need me to provide you with this to refresh your memory? And she had to constantly show him things. He was like, I don't remember. Maybe what did I? He was like, you tell me what I said. So that was that. And he talked about R. Kelly did write these songs on her first album, and that's pretty much it. They went on tour. Mr. Smith and R. Kelly and the rest of the team, they went on tour. Something happened. Long story short, they had to come back to Chicago. And that's when the marriage happened. So, long story short, he said that he didn't want R. Kelly to marry Aaliyah. That was Daryl's idea, who was R. Kelly's manager. He objected to it, but he still wanted to be in the loop because he wanted to like have his hand on R. Kelly because he didn't want this thing to spin out of control, that type of thing. So when they were having the conversation, he said that he knew where he could get an ID made. He told Daryl that, hey, somebody, people always need money. So Demetrius had received state benefits at some point, and so he had an idea to go and get a welfare ID for Aaliyah, or what they would call like a public assistance ID. I think that's what they called it. The public assistance card had no date of birth, none of that on there. He went into the office, like talked around to some people, offered somebody some money. They took it. He said they brought her in. They took a picture, gave her ID, and they left, and that was it. But they knew because there was no date of birth or anything else on there that they would need a second form of ID. So another guy that they knew had an idea to get her like a workplace like badge ID, and that guy knew some guy at some type of carrier company like FedEx, something like that. And they went there and got a workplace ID made. From there, they went to the Cook County clerk to get the marriage certificate. And that Daryl, who was R. Kelly's manager, handled that because they knew they didn't have proper identification for Aaliyah, which they only had the public aid ID and the workplace ID. So they would not give them a certificate. What happened is Daryl, the manager, did something that he didn't know, and they ended up giving them a marriage certificate. He also talked about at that point he was like, I don't feel comfortable. I don't like this. I don't want to talk about this. Aaliyah's parents aren't here. She's dead. So on and so forth. And the judge was like, you have to. And that was pretty much it. He also made some jokes throughout testimony, and the judge was like, my patience is wearing thin. And he was like, oh, so that means I can go? And she was like, no, that's not what that means. The case ended today with pretty much with that. The government asked him some more questions. We did not get to cross-examination of this witness, but the government did ask him some more questions today, just about his testimony at the grand jury, because he was reluctant to provide any information. And they were saying, well, you understand your immunity order and so on and so forth. And he was like, I feel like y'all threatening me at this point. I just want to go home. I want to stop this. And the judge was like, no. So at this point, it was 5:30. We had to leave. They recessed for the weekend, and the judge let Mr. Smith know he had to be back on Monday at 9:30. And he was like, he didn't want to. Hey, too bad. We adjourned for the day. As we were leaving the courtroom, we were notified that we could not leave because there was an incident in the lobby. We don't know what the incident was, so we had to all stay in the courtroom for about another 10 minutes and with a lot of security. And that was today at the R. Kelly trial. Hello, this is Tiffany Adams, and this is my recap of day 3 of the R. Kelly trial. There was a cliffhanger at the end of the day, but whatever you're thinking it was, that wasn't it. All right, so
Hey y'all, I'm finna go. I just wanted to show y'all a little recap. We hearing different things from different people. This female, she's been skipping over a whole lot of things that were said. There was something did happen in the lobby because I'm getting this report from different journalists that were there, and they were saying that something happened. Some of the journalists were saying that it was R. Kelly supporters and things like that. Like, can you make that a guarantee? I said, because I said for 2 years they've been putting stuff on Robert Sylvester Kelly supporters, and it's not us. I said, just like with the, so-called, witnesses, Jane Doe's, I said their parents were a part of these screen names, and, you know, putting threat towards these accusers and trying to put blame on, Robert's supporters. And I told him about the situation with Cash Jones. I told him about the situation with her cousin Michael Williams. And I said Robert had no involvement with these people like that. She was hanging around, I guess trying to get information for a book. Angelo Clary, Azriel Clary's father, sent her in there to infiltrate along with others, and things like that. So I have been reaching out to journalists, trying to give them, information so they can see why the judge is locking everybody out and not allowing the media in there. And so I just told them, I said, welcome to our world, because this is what we've been going through. They've been locking us out, trying to hide things from us, trying to keep our message from being out there, trying to intimidate us, trying to talk about the feds, talking about we're going to go to jail. And this is all courtesy of Angelo Clary. I also told him about Tim Savage. I said Tim Savage is the father of Joycelyn Savage. He spoke with Cash Jones. Cash Jones recorded the conversation where Timothy Savage talked about Faith Rogers, said she was a liar. Her mother told her to go get more evidence, says that she was wild, called her the B word. And at the end, he also told Cash Jones that he spoke to Tamara. Tamara knows that these people were lying, and the reason why they didn't pull production because they didn't want to lose $3.1 million. This is something new that I heard from this lady about Durham McDavis being involved in this. From what I hear, that Durham McDavis got with Aaliyah's uncle. Oh my God, Barry Hankerson. So what they were trying to do was trying to set up Robert Sylvester Kelly, and this is what I have, heard. I heard like 3 different versions of it. So, like I said, she's not here to tell her side of the story. Her mother's not going to speak on it, and so this is what I'm hearing from these people. So, what from one person, they said it was Daryl McDavis going to Barry Hankerson, and what Daryl McDavis was trying to do was trying to cause a conflict with Robert and Barry Hankerson. Barry Hankerson, you guys remember, hired Daryl McDavis. Daryl McDavis was hired by Barry Hankerson. So I want y'all to know that. So Daryl McDavis hired, a couple more of the females. These people wasn't hired by Robert Sylvester Kelly. Daryl McDavis. Daryl McDavis went into Barry Hankerson office and tried to start some, drama with Robert. He said certain things to him about Alea, and so Barry Hankerson is saying that Robert was gonna, leave him. So this PO'd him. So what I'm gonna say on this. This is a hearsay thing because, like I always tell him, I want, proof. I want evidence, or maybe if I hear from different people that don't know each other, that's when I have confidence in this. But I'm just gonna say what what they were saying about Durham McDavis. Durham McDavis' plan was to destroy the communication with Barry Hankerson and Robert. So he goes to Robert and say, well, Barry Hankerson is saying that he's gonna ruin your career. He's gonna do this. He's gonna do that because there's rumors about you and Alea, and and different things like that. So it was basically more of a setup to try to get Robert in some mess. So Barry Hankerson you know, did some threat to him. It was like, you better come back here and yada, 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 you know. So, Robert just won't speak on it because he don't want to mess up, Alea's legacy. So they say, he's not going to speak on it because they worked hard to try to get her, to stardom. And, he just have the love for the music, and he always promised that he would never, speak down on, Alea and mess up her legacy at all. So, I don't think Robert will be telling his side of the story on it, but everything that took place with Alea, Barry Hankerson, and Dermot Davis was to try to, you know, end the situation with him and Barry Hankerson. So Dermot Davis was more of the snake in there. He was the master in the snake pit, you know. So it was just, it's a lot of stuff has been said to me, and so I'm just like, a lot of stuff I just will, I will not, put out here on the public. I have been speaking to um, people, and just sending the information to the attorneys. And I also was like, are you going to go to New York anytime this week? So I was, but then, I'm hearing that they're needing to get the witnesses there. So what I'm going to do is donate my flight to a witness. So I will be giving my flight to a witness or two, because they have a sale. So I can split that into two witnesses to get them there, round trip ticket, because that's more important. If they're there to help him, I can be there in support. But if I'm not sitting on that witness stand, there's no need for me to be there. So I did reach out. I said I will, donate, my ticket to someone, and they can split that into two, because Southwest and American Airlines has a great sale for round trip. So that's what I'm going to be doing, donating for the witnesses to get to New York. But as I say, I'm still, getting information in, but I'm working on, this weekend, trying to get as much information as I can on the situation with Demetrius Smith. You know, we already know he's a crook. I just remind them, just remember, he's a thief. He's been in and out of jail. He's a character. I, my opinion, I just feel like he did not, he wanted to testify, but he was trying to pretend like he didn't, because he's trying to win both sides. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, this guy, he gets there. So they have to remember, these people, they testify um, in front of grand jurors. Then they do a deposition, and then they're there on the witness stand. So they have to remember, when they go up and they say something, they can be subpoenaed. They can, go to jail. So they were like, okay, you plead the fifth, you might have a chance of going to jail. So I'm trying to understand why this didn't happen to Jim Daragatis. So why they didn't threaten Jim Daragatis when he pleaded the fifth? So he tried to use his journalism rights, to get out of his testimony for 2008. But I see now that, they're playing kind of a dirty game. And this is the first time that I'm hearing all the objections from the prosecutors. And then the judge is saying, okay, yeah, I'm just not hearing the defense is doing objections, and I hopefully they are, and I hope, this go round next week, that I hear objection, objection, objections, because you need that. If you know hope for the best, you know and prepare for the worst. I hate to say it like that, but hope for the best, pray for the best, and prepare for the worst. And so you have to go in and and do that so you can do an appeal. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to appeal. So you have to. That was the state. What was the state in? This is the federal government. So I'm trying to figure out what are you saying? I was trying to say that I hope Demetrius destroy his own testimony if they thought that R. Kelly will bow out before the trial. They didn't even plan to go to court. Yeah, see, that's the whole thing, and that's what I was telling you guys. I say if you guys pay attention to what they are doing, they are trying to throw all this stuff out in hopes of, Robert Sylvester Kelly pleading. And I said, if I were him and you know that you are innocent, I would take this all the way. And a lot of people don't understand with the federal, and a lot of people are like, oh my God, they got a high percentage. That's because a lot of people plead. And so this is their game. They're like, okay, you're gonna get all these years if you don't go and plead for a lesser charge. And so they try to make it convincing. And so they started throwing everything, even the kitchen sink at Robert. And so, Robert is like, I'm taking this to trial. And so a lot of people are like, oh, you need to tell him to plead. I'm like, if he believes, he was there, he knew what happened, so he know what happened in his home, tours and things like that. So at the end of the day, this is Robert's occupation. So, as an artist, even in the military, flight attendants, pilots, people, their jobs are in different states. So if they have a significant other, and they fly them to that state, I don't see nothing as a RICO, at this point. I put a link up in my community chat. It was this guy doing a call in, and he was trying to be a little funny. So I was trying to get, some of Robert's supporters, like, y'all go and tell them, what y'all know, and give them some knowledge. I don't know what happened after that. I just, I went in and typed a few things, and, I had to keep doing what I'm doing. State and federal rules are different. You can't go to jail for lying in a federal case. I, I know that, but I was saying here that Demetrius Smith is trying to play both sides of the field. Okay, I know about the federal, I know about the state, you know, but like I was telling you guys, these attorneys, they know that the prosecutors has been grooming these people, meeting with them, trying to tell them what they're going to say. They go over the questions with them, and they practice. So basically, this is what the defense is trying to throw out there, trying to let you know the jurors know, like, hey, they groom these people to go in. These people have been lying since Wednesday, and no one's in jail yet. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So as far as him, like, not wanting to, it doesn't matter. Like, even in the state, if you can go to jail. It depends on the state you're in. It doesn't have to be a federal. It does not. It does not. Jim Derrick Gaddis actually used his journalism rights to get out of that, pleading the fifth, not giving up his sources. So that's what Jim Derrick Gaddis did. He used his journalism rights to do that. And seeing this, what these the feds will do, prosecutors will do. They will try to scare you up. They will try to hem you in a room. And I talked about this a long time ago. Don't bite the bait. When I first came on the scene, I'm like, do not bite the bait. This is what these prosecutors, they do also well, is to try to scare you up. Especially in the federal cases, they try to get in your ear and scare you up in hopes that your attorneys tell you, hey, let's go ahead and plead. And so as we know, and from what I'm hearing from his people, Robert is a fighter, and he will fight you tooth and nail. And he's not he'll hurt, but he's not gonna, give up. And this is the fight of his life, and I wouldn't blame him. I will fight to the very end. So once I get more information, I'll let you guys know. But like I told y'all earlier today, from what I'm hearing, Joycelyn Savage will be testifying on the behalf of Robert Sylvester Kelly. She just has been MIA for her safety, and she just don't want people in her ear. She just want to keep her mind clear and calm and things like that. And so hopefully, we'll get Dominique to come in and speak on Robert's behalf and debunk a lot of stuff that her homie lover friend, has been saying on the witness stand. Dominique Gardner. I mean, Joronda Pace. We have so many names. So, like I told you guys, even before, one of the interns that started working for Robert at the Olympia Field. I don't know if I told you guys this 4 days before. I told you guys that Joronda Pace and them jumped over that gate, and I heard this from several people. So he even said himself that, these women jumped over the gate. And so everybody that told me identified Joronda Pace. And so she jumped over the gate after, she was put out. So it's like, how they're saying things now, I guess because it's been so long, their memory, a lot of the people memories is all over the place. But Joronda Pace was kicked out, but she came back, later on with a friend girl and jumped over the gate when she didn't have her ID. So I'm gonna end this with that, you guys. So y'all have a blessed day. And like I said, because I was gonna just say it, do this and do it on private, so I just went ahead and just pushed live. But yes, you can go to jail. It doesn't matter state or federal. You can go to jail. Um, that's why I was speaking on Mr. Jim. And so at the end of the day, um, I'm thinking from everything that I'm hearing, this judge, she is all working on the prosecutor's behalf. And I believe that's the reason why they will not let no cameras in there. So listening to people, and so I think everybody needs to be in more details and pay more attention to what's going on. If you guys are going to give, information out there on what happened in court, speak on how the judge reacted, speak on who objected and who didn't object. You have to put all that in because it matters. So if you're gonna report this, you guys, I know it's a lot. If you're gonna report it, put it all out there. We can't see it. We only can get information from people, and we just hearing bits and pieces. So if you guys can, especially Robert Sylvester Kelly supporters, if you're in that overflow room, if all of you guys have to just sit together and take notes and then put them together, you speak, write down what the witness is saying, write down what the prosecutors are saying, write down what the defense is saying, write down what the judge is saying, because this all comes into play. It's important to know how the judge is treating Robert and his defense team, because from what I'm hearing right now, that every time when the prosecutors object, she's okay with it. And so they have to change questions and stuff. And so from what I'm hearing from other people, I was told that Nicole did a good job, and Thomas did a good job, and um, Cannon did a great job. But from other people, like the media, we're hearing negative stuff about Nicole and Thomas. So that's what I'm saying, you guys. So like, if you're out there, and just do the best you can by doing it like detail by detail. What is the judge saying? What the prosecutors are saying? We want to hear both sides. We don't want to just be like, oh yeah, how the our team did a great job, and all those prosecutors didn't do anything, they were weak. You guys, if y'all gonna do tell us about the trial, you guys please be in details, because this is important. Because you know, now people working on trying to put in some information to higher up on how things are going in that courtroom. So if y'all guys can actually, we appreciate you being there, but if you can just do this to help us, so we can know what we can tell the higher up about what's going on, it'll help us. But saying that the defense team did great, and all them prosecutors did, oh, this witness, he was this and that. You guys, everything comes into play. Objections, who she's favoring objections to, who she's denying stuff to. All of this stuff comes into play with Judge Ann, with Robert Sylvester Kelly's case. So, you guys, I'm gonna end this right now. So y'all have a blessed one, and be good. I'm still, making phone calls, just trying to get as much information that I can, looking around, trying to see if I can get the right information and details on things and stuff. I'll be glad when the defense can present their case. Yeah, like I said, somebody was asking me, was I coming, and I was going to plan on it. But then when I heard about they're trying to get, lounging and get these people out there, I said, well, I'll volunteer my ticket. I'll volunteer my ticket for 2 people, you know. So you guys be blessed. Y'all be blessed. Crazy, y'all. Who is crazy, y'all? Are you? Are you innocent? Are you innocent? Are these women's innocent? Shoot. Everybody have their opinions, though. Let them troll, baby. So, at the end of the day, you guys, um, hopefully, everybody that's doing the report on it, that they will give, details, from the, judge and the prosecutors, the defense, and the witnesses. So hopefully, next week everybody regroup and get it together, and you know have a plan. Just see what they can do better that they didn't do this week. So you guys be blessed, and all the people that's out there in front of the media, you guys, get that information out there to those people. And so the person asked about my channel. I came on here because I 100% believe in Robert Sylvester Kelly. I have told people about my situation um, with him, and I won't share that anymore. But I appreciate him in just doing our 2 years of research. We have seen a bunch of untruth in this, and so this is what we are here to do: get out that information so people can know the truth. We're doing what the mainstream media should have done. So because we support him, we're going to do that, no matter how nobody else feels. Y'all be blessed.